BlackRock manages more money than the GDP of every country on Earth except two. You are a 22-year-old with a laptop and a badge. You are now in the gravitational field of the largest pool of capital in human history. You are an analyst. You make $110,000 a year. Your day starts at 6:45 a.m. Not because anyone told you to, but because the analyst across the row gets in at 7 and you are not going to let that stand. You build models. Spreadsheets wider than your monitor for assets you'll never see, in markets you've never visited, for clients whose names you can't say outside the office. At 11 p.m., you find an error. It is a misplaced comma. The comma has been wrong for 3 days. You fix it. You go home at midnight. And yet you love it. Or something that feels close enough to love that you can't tell the difference. There is a voltage in that building you have never felt anywhere else. 3 years pass. You are now an associate. Some people didn't make it. The smartest person in your training class, gone in 14 months, said he felt like he was disappearing. You told him you understood, but you didn't understand. You had already started disappearing and decided to call it ambition. $175,000 base. The bonus arrives in February, deposited quietly, like a secret the firm keeps with you. You check the number in a bathroom stall, door locked. It isn't shame, it's awareness. That the number is large enough to change how people look at you, and that you've already started looking at other people differently based on theirs. The scoreboard is in your head now. You didn't put it there. It just grew. You sit in real client meetings, pension funds covering the retirements of hundreds of thousands of teachers and firefighters who will never know you exist. You talk about risk, about exposure, about positioning. You're 25 years old. You learn not to think about it too hard. What you can't stop thinking about is Aladdin. Aladdin is BlackRock's risk platform. It runs calculations on roughly $21 trillion in assets, not just BlackRock's, other banks, insurance companies, central banks. They pay BlackRock for access because nobody else has anything close. You're starting to get noticed now. Promoted early to vice president at 28. A nice apartment, a nice car. A partner who has quietly stopped asking what time you'll be home because the honest answer has too many variables. Compensation is somewhere between $400,000 to $600,000. You are senior enough to be accountable for failure, junior enough to have no real power over outcomes. You feel the turbulence, but cannot touch the controls. That gap between responsibility and authority is where careers quietly break down. But that's not you. You adapt. You learn to read rooms. Which managing director wants ideas challenged, and which one wants his own thinking reflected back with minor polish. You learn the politics of credit, how to be associated with wins and dissociated from losses, without appearing to do either intentionally. The hours are still long. You work your associate and analyst hard, yelling at them and obsessing over the smallest details, as that was how you were treated. The higher-ups put pressure on you to meet deadlines and hit targets. Managing director, one of the youngest in the firm's history at 35 years old. There's a moment where you walk into a room and feel it change. Not dramatically, just a slight reorganization of attention. You have become someone with gravity. Compensation is in the millions now. Multiple millions. You have stopped converting figures to real-world objects. The numbers have become abstract, the way very large and very small things both become abstract. They simply are. You fly first class, not because someone upgraded you, but because it is now simply your category. The hotel knows your preferences before you arrive. These are not luxuries anymore, they are the ambient texture of your existence. Your client relationships are with sovereign wealth funds, pools of capital managed on behalf of entire nations. You meet their principals in Abu Dhabi, Riyadh, Singapore, Oslo. These are not sales meetings. They are diplomatic audiences. You are not selling them a product. You are maintaining a relationship between two very large forces. You have been in rooms where decisions made around allocation, around strategy, around risk will touch the retirement savings of millions of people who will never know your name. This is not metaphor. This is the job. BlackRock's stewardship team votes shares in thousands of companies. They vote against board members, against executive pay, against mergers they have decided are not in shareholders' long-term interest. They push companies to disclose risk that regulators don't yet require, because BlackRock has decided it should be required and acts accordingly. You're writing corporate governance in real time, unelected, unaccountable to the public, and very effective. An owner of a company somewhere, or some board member, Their fate is being shaped by a conversation and happening in a room they don't know exists. They will feel the outcome you decide without ever seeing the cause. This weighs on you. You look at your penthouse and think, more clearly than you have allowed yourself before, that you are inside something with no real outside. That the firm is not just large, it is everything. The system leans on it. You push the thought away. There's a call with the Korean pension fund in 9 minutes. Partner. There are 30, maybe 40 people at the true top. You have made it. The firm has decided, after decades of watching you, that you are one of them. The best of the best. You have arrived somewhere with limitless access and control. Compensation is 8 figures in a good year, plus equity in a firm worth over $150 billion. You have more money than you can spend with intention. You have reached the horizon where money stops being a number and becomes a position of permanent insulation from consequence. You no longer decide the fate of companies. That is beneath you. You just help to restructure the Greek debt crisis, manage the Federal Reserve's bond buying program during COVID. The U.S. government outsourced its emergency market intervention to you. When Ukraine needed the economic stabilization during the war, they called Blackrock. When the EU built its pandemic recovery bond market, they called Blackrock. You have a finger in every pot. No election was held. No vote was taken. The world called the most capable entity it could find, and BlackRock answered. A group of you and 30 peers control and handle some of the biggest decisions made globally. You attend Davos, not as a guest, but in the rooms not on the printed agenda, where the real conversations happen. You have dinner with finance ministers, with central bank governors. They are not your clients in any transactional sense. They are your peers. In the thin atmosphere where national economies are abstractions, and the unit of measurement is trillions, you are no longer a money manager. You shape policy, politics, and global events. You have lived inside the answer to every uncomfortable question about this place for so long, that the questions no longer feel like questions. They feel like weather, like the shape of the ground you walk on. You have dominated your peers, made every right decision, outlasted everyone. After decades of quiet, bloodless elimination, the board selects you as the chief executive officer of BlackRock. You did not campaign, you positioned. You were never the loudest voice in the room. You were the one who controlled which voices got rooms. There is no ceremony. There is no coronation. One day the board meets, and when the meeting ends, your name is the one attached to the largest asset manager in the history of human civilization. Your compensation package is announced in a public filing, as you now run a publicly traded company. It says $30 million per year. You laugh at this. In reality, it is billions of dollars. The calls start immediately, not from colleagues, but from governments. At this point, the money is the least interesting thing to you. Within your first month, you have received calls from 3 heads of state, not their offices, them, personally, feeling out the relationship, establishing that the channel is open. Because every government on Earth with a sovereign wealth fund, a pension system, a debt problem, or an infrastructure gap has learned, over the last 30 years, that BlackRock is the entity you want on your side before the crisis hits. The Federal Reserve consults you, not because there is a law requiring it, because the alternative making large-scale market interventions without understanding how the largest holder of those assets sees the landscape would be, frankly, reckless. So they call, and you answer. And somewhere in that exchange, the line between private firm and public infrastructure becomes very difficult to locate. You control it all. What you say is gospel. You testify to Congress. Senators with weeks of prepared questions sit across from you and realize somewhere in the middle of the exchange that you understand the system they are trying to regulate better than them, better than the regulators. Nothing changes because you don't want it to. The hearing was just a show for the public anyways. You are not outside anything anymore. You are the system. The car stops, and someone is waiting with a phone. There's always someone waiting with a phone. The name on the screen is a finance minister. The market opens in 4 minutes. 30 million people's pension contributions are moving through systems your firm designed. You put the weight of it on like a coat. You made the world this way. Incrementally. Over 30 years. One model, one deal, one vote at a time, and the world let you. Because the world, it turns out, wanted to be managed. Wanted someone to pick up the phone when things broke. Wanted someone to control it. At least that's what you tell yourself. You worked your whole life for this. Gave 30 years to this company. The machine gave back everything it promised. The money was real. The power was real. But machines don't know your name. They know your function. You have shaped policy, global events, and made decisions that affect billions of people's lives. Where the choice is correct, you will never know. Please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Comment down below what video you would like to see next.